How we doing, team? Mike here from Valley. I'm just going to run through a two-part series just on some little tips to help you out with your rowing. First part that we're going to be running through today is utilising our drag factor correctly for the Concept 2 rower. Okay, and part two will be a little bit more based around the technique of rowing. But today, what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on how to actually set up your drag factor and how to utilise this drag factor to enhance your rowing workouts. Alrighty, so we've got our PM3 monitor here, all right, and we have our drag resistance down the side here. Okay, so to create more drag, we go up to a 10. To create less drag, we drop down to a 1. Okay, so what we need to do for initially is we need to obviously find the right setting for where we can find our drag factor. So what we need to do is here, sit down the bottom, more options, okay, and then display the drag factor here. Okay, once we start rowing, what I'll do is I'll just put you down, just do a couple of strokes. All right, set this up, just hit a couple of pulls. All right. You'll notice there I've just done 3 or 4 pulls. It gives me about a drag factor of 104. Now, regardless of how fast you're rowing or how powerful you are, your drag factor will always be the same. So I've got that setting on about a 4, okay, and it's creating me a drag factor of about 104. Now, it is a little bit of personal preference depending on what you would prefer. So if you'd like to have a little bit less drag factor in your rowing, then that's absolutely fine as well. Obviously, that's going to help you if you're going for longer distances. You're probably going to have a little bit lower drag factor, and if you're doing shorter sprints, which is what we utilise the rowing machine for, a little bit more high intensity stuff, you're probably going to have that drag factor a little bit higher. Okay, so where we sort of have a bit of a generic baseline is we want to have that drag factor at around about 130 to 135. So obviously for me, I'm going to need to increase that drag factor up a little bit higher. All right, so I'm going to take that up to about a 7. All right, I'll just have a wee row there and just see how it goes. All right, as we can see, that's just a little bit high, so I need to drop that down if I want to sit around about 135. Okay, so I'll drop it down to about a 6. I'll just have another wee row. All right, and I'm sitting about a 125. So as you can see, I just moved that about two slots on the slide, and it's made a big difference to my drag factor already just by doing that. Now, 135 is probably a good pace if you're doing, as a generic rule, if you're doing sort of 500s, and if you're a bigger, stronger rower, you probably might be able to stretch those out to thousands. But as you get further in distance, we somewhat recommend getting that drag factor down. Now, playing around with it yourself a little bit is the best thing, because everybody is slightly different and you want to work out what works best for you, but this is a great way of figuring that out. A little side note, just remember that every rowing machine is different. So just because you're a drag factor on one machine of, it's at damper 6, does not necessarily mean that on every other Concept 2 rowing machine, you're going to be a damper 6 for rowing. So keep that in mind. All right, that every rowing machine is unique, and you want to be setting that drag factor accordingly to each of the rowing machines. Okay, so if you work yourself out, if you're doing some short sprints or some Tabatas or something like that on the rower, 135 is a good place to start for those high intensity movements. And as you're getting into doing some longer distances, have a play around with that drag factor. If you're doing sort of 2 to 5 to 10k rows, then you're probably going to be looking at working around a 110 potentially to 120, depending on your rowing technique, your advancement, how advanced you are rowing, and things like that. Just remember, the higher the drag factor, that does not necessarily mean you're getting a better workout either. All right, so use your drag factor as your advantage. If you want any more information on this, jump on the Concept 2 website. They've got plenty of information. But also, if you've got any other questions, just chuck them in the comments section below. All right, hopefully this is a little bit helpful, and we can improve those rolling times. Cheers.